We're at St Irenaeus Church in Park Forest with Father Terry Johnson, pastor of St Irenaeus. Father, you've been here a little over a year as pastor. Why don't you tell us about yourself?
I hope you all find this pretty interesting. I grew up in the south side here. I grew up in Matteson, so this area is pretty familiar to me. I've seen a lot of changes in the last 20, 30, 40 years in the area. But there is something about the south side that remains the same. It's the hospitality of the folks, the genuineness, the down-to-earth quality of people that I think makes this area really unique and makes it a pleasure to be in for me and to serve here as pastor of St Irenaeus. So it's just been a real joy to be here this last year and a half, to be back on the south side after being around the archdiocese in a variety of places. So it's quite an adventure to be here.
When were you ordained?
I was ordained in 1994 after working for about 10 years as a high school religion teacher over at Elizabeth Seton High School in South Holland, and then working as a director of religious education at St. Benedict's in Blue Island, Illinois. Was there for about 7 or 8 years, and was there working with the priests there that I thought, there might be something here. There might be a vocation. There might be a call, whatever that is. So I responded, and in 1991 went to the seminary. Was ordained in 94. Went to St. Christopher's in Midlothian for my first assignment. Spent 5 years there. Then from there I went to the seminary up at Mundelein and served on the faculty there for 3 years. From there I went to St. Francis Xavier Parish in LaGrange for 2 years. From there I went to Catholic Theological Union in Hyde Park for 5 years as director of the Hesburgh Sabbatical Program, a program for priests and nuns from around the world. They came to us to be renewed and refreshed and to go back into ministry in their various countries and places. Quite an interesting job. You saw the global church at its best. All the variety of ways of talking about God and being with God and celebrating that in liturgy and prayer and all that sort of thing. We have lots of different experiences with African culture, Samoan culture, people from Australia. We had an individual from Fiji as well, so we learned some native Fijian dances. It was quite interesting.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it was very nice.
Landed here in Park Forest after a long-time pastor served, Father O'Sullivan.
Right.
And how has the transition been for you?
The people here have made it easy to do that. I think Father O'Sullivan laid a great foundation of lay leadership and lay responsibility here in the parish that I hope that will continue, and it has so far. I have no reason to believe that it won't. There's a spirit here that I think permeates his style of church and his style of faith. That's something to be built on. That needs to keep going. Certainly we will do it a little differently because I'm different and people change and all that sort of thing, but the basic stuff remains the same. The essentials are there, and that's the important piece. So it's really an honor to come after him, to be here, and to follow in his footsteps in a certain sense. Yeah.
What do you see some of the challenges for St. Irenaeus?
Challenges, I think there are a few. I think certainly the financial piece is a thing that everyone is facing these days with the economic situation of the country and all that. But I think that we'll get through that. It'll be what it'll be, and we'll be around, and it'll be good. Not going to be easy, but we'll do it.
How do you like? You said you grew up in Matteson, so you're familiar with the area.
Yeah.
How do you find Park Forest?
Park Forest is kind of as I remember it growing up. It's a kind of a unique situation, a unique village in that there's there's lots of different folks in terms of cultures, in terms of ethnic backgrounds, ways of making a living, I think. And it all contributes, I think, to a spirit here that people really try to work at doing this stuff together, doing this thing called life, this faith thing together. Even though the different churches in Park Forest, the different varieties of faith, ways of getting to God, I think we're all on the same path. There's just different ways to get there. We're all doing it together. The churches in Park Forest have been meeting every couple of months for the last almost a year now, I think. Trying to find some common issues to work around, some common events to sponsor, to show kind of a unity, a vibrancy of faith here in Park Forest that I think is there. We just want to kind of highlight it and hold it up for everybody to see. We're going to do a joint Martin Luther King Day event. And right now, I think it's planned to be hosted here at St Irenaeus because we have one of the largest buildings to host it in. There's talk about doing some sort of a common worship service on a Sunday afternoon.
Oh, cool.
Somewhere in the village, maybe in the center, or we still have to talk with lots of people about all that, but some interesting stuff going on there. St. Irenaeus is particularly working on, we just started working on a cooperation thing with the South Suburban Food Co-op. We're going to do, they're going to do their community gardens out here on some of our land. And we're going to do 2 of the beds, and they're going to come up with 4 more beds to work on. We're trying to get things to be to the point where we can involve some of the neighborhood, maybe use it as an educational piece for schools, all that sort of thing, in terms of care of the earth, growing, eating food, how to do that. And we're hoping that maybe some of the churches might want to get involved in that too. It might be a way to bring us all together around a common issue. And right now we're looking for ways to use the food that's grown out there, the vegetables and things like that. Not only at the co-op, but at other, maybe some social service agencies around the area to help folks. So there's lots of good stuff going on here.
Seems like it might be a good way also of involving the youth.
Yeah.
That's always a challenge.
It is. And I think that's, you talked about challenges before, and I think that's a challenge for all of us. How to keep the youth involved in church and faith and connected to some sort of a faith community. They're out there, and we see them all over the place. We need to invite them in and make them feel welcome. So we're hoping to do a lot of that stuff. There's all sorts of talk about getting people involved in other ways around the gardens, the community gardens. So anybody listening to this, come on over. We can use your help.
You mentioned some experience with the Hesburgh Center.
Mm-hmm.
How do you stay grounded?
How do I stay grounded? That's a good question. Certainly my prayer life is one way that I do that a little time every morning before I get up and go over for Mass, spend in prayer, quiet time with the Lord. Just kind of sitting with God and listening to what God might be saying. It's not always easy. Sometimes I end up snoring, but it's the perseverance, it's the repetition of it all, to keep doing it and keep trying. The other piece for me is I do some work out at the Portiuncula Center for Prayer in Frankfurt.
Oh, yeah.
I do some programming out there. I just finished a program on images of God. It was a Saturday program on different ways to look at God and how to image God for ourselves in the 21st century. I'm also enrolled in a spiritual guidance training program up at Racine Dominican Center in Wisconsin. We meet once a month for a weekend and just kind of go over skills and learnings about how to do spiritual direction, spiritual companioning with folks, and how that all touches the individual who's listening. So us as the guides, how do we do that? And looking at God images and images of the new universe story and images of Christ. So it's a 2-year program, so it should be pretty interesting. That's another way that keeps me focused.
You think sometimes of Catholicism, and the public image right away is the bishops, and
Sure.
but there's so much variety. What are some of the programs offered here at St Irenaeus? I know there's Knights of Columbus. There's spread.
Mm-hmm.
You have pads
Right.
once a week.
Right.
What goes on here?
You mentioned some of the institutional public faces of the Catholic Church. For me, while that's true, I think the real public face of the Church are some of those programs and the people involved and the people that they serve. Certainly, the PADS program, the South Suburban Public Action to Deliver Shelter, is a direct gospel mandate from Matthew 25. And we see it every Thursday night here. We see people coming into us for food and shelter and some clothing. That's the public face of the mission of the church, the mission of the gospel. Spread as well, helping people who have some physical, mental difficulties, challenges, to come to know God and Jesus in their own lives. Sunday was Easter, and one of the things we did was have people come to the font. Instead of sprinkling them, having people come to the font and bless themselves and receive the waters of baptism. Watching people come to that font, watching the different variety of ages and faces and cultures, all coming to the same font, all coming to the same God. That's the public face of the church. That's where the rubber hits the road for me. That's who we serve. The bishops and the other stuff, we need all that stuff probably for whatever, for governance and all that. But the real stuff is the folks, people in the pew. Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to comment on, or?
No, just again, any one of you, anybody listening to this little vignette, if you haven't fallen asleep, you're more than welcome to come to St Irenaeus. We'd be more than happy to have you. Come worship with us, pray with us, and see what we're about.
What time are the liturgies?
Oh, I looked at my watch. We have a 5 o'clock evening liturgy on Saturday evenings, and then we have an 8:30 and a 10:30 in the morning masses on Sunday morning. So any of those times. An 8 o'clock mass Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and communion services on Thursday and Friday at 8 o'clock.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.